Hey, how are you doing this evening? As a lot of you know, we're remodeling our kitchen. It's coming along. The thing is looking fantastic. We've had a lot of frustrations with the appliances and the delivery schedule and everything. And we were supposed to get our last appliance, our refrigerator, the day before yesterday. We got a phone call from Lowe's saying, "Well, we're not going to get the refrigerator. That it's not going to come until October." And things like that get under my skin, and it's easy for me to get angry, and I did. And fortunately, I have a godly wife that kind of reins me in on these things and reminded me that getting angry doesn't really help the situation. We're going to get the refrigerator. When we get the refrigerator, God is sovereign over all things, and kind of brings me back down to earth and dispels some of that frustration that I have. And so it just reminded me of the fact that little things can get under your skin, and we got to be careful with that. And so I was reminded of that, and kind of poignantly, Kelly and I watched Jonah from Sight and Sound. It was on live streaming on TBN, and Sight and Sound up in Lancaster does a fantastic production. We've seen several of their shows, and they're always really good. They're always really entertaining. They're really over the top, well done, and this was no different. And there was some conjecture in the show, but you watch these things to be entertained, not necessarily to be taught. The kind of disappointing thing at the end was Jonah seems to resolve all of his differences with the way God was doing things, and of course there's a big production number, and everybody's singing and dancing and hugging each other, and that's really not the way the book of Jonah goes. And so as I process my own anger, I'm reminded of Jonah, who was an angry guy, So I've got a little bit of iced tea, iced Khimon Rouge, a Darjeeling, very refreshing today. It's been a hot day. Kelly and I have been working outside, staining wood and that sort of thing, and so it's nice to have something. Get yourself something refreshing, and let's open up to the book of Jonah. We're going to be in Jonah chapter 4. Now, before we get here, we're going to be right here at the end of chapter 4. Jonah, God calls him to go to Nineveh. The people of Nineveh are the enemies of Israel. Jonah has suffered perhaps some personal loss. He tries to get away. That doesn't work. He gets swallowed by a whale. He's spit up on the shore. And finally, after that harrowing ordeal, Jonah decides to submit to the Father and go to Nineveh and preach. And he does it, and much to Jonah's dismay, the Ninevites repent and call upon God. And Jonah's he's upset that he has to go to Nineveh. He doesn't see God moving on the boat until he's swallowed by the whale, but the sailors get saved. Jonah gets saved. And so Jonah's anger and his bitterness towards the Ninevites prevents him from seeing the blessing that God is enacting in and through Jonah. Jonah is being used by God in a mighty way. He's an evangelist out there to Gentiles, and people are getting saved. And so we get to the end of Jonah. The Ninevites have repented. They're turned towards God. And here in Jonah 4:5, it says, Jonah went out of the city and sat to the east of the city and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade till he should see what would become of the city. Now he watches, and this plant grows up, and Jonah's thankful for the plant, but the plant dies. Jonah's upset that the plant is gone, and gets upset with God. And Jonah says in verse 8, "It's better for me to die than to live." Jonah says, "I'd rather die than see all this happening here." But God said to Jonah in verse 9, "Do you do well to be angry for the plant?" And he said, "Yes, I do well to be angry enough to die." So Jonah, it's almost humorous. Jonah is willing to die because this plant is gone. And the Lord said, "You pity the plant for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should not I pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle. And the book ends there. And the book ends with Jonah mad. And so you kind of wonder, well, what's going on here? And the lesson that we need to learn is that Jonah's anger prevented him from taking any pleasure in the blessings and presence of God. His anger ruled everything. He's so angry at the Ninevites. He's angry at God for saving the Ninevites. And so the book ends with Jonah grumbling and groaning and sitting there in a bad mood. Said, I'd rather die because this plant's gone. You might as well kill me. You'd save the Ninevites. I knew you were going to do this, he says a little bit earlier. And Jonah misses the blessing of being a tool in the hands of God. Oh, for such a time as this, we have this lesson. We have this story. So you and I, brothers and sisters, need to make sure that we don't get so angry over any given situation. Refrigerators that don't come, political issues, anything, that we miss the hand of God moving in our lives. I pray that you have the blessing of seeing his hand moving in your life, and that you thank him for that blessing, and that you find peace in that. I love you. I miss you. I'll talk to you.